And now, here's lesson number 3, entitled Cause and Effect.
Our subject is the law of cause and effect. And this really should be called the great law. The psalmist wrote, "Those who love your law have perfect security, and there's nothing that can make them fall." We live in a universe of law. All of the mystics and prophets, the great teachers, those who were the first voices in each of the world's great religions, were speaking to the people about the law. They were not speaking about religion at all, as we understand religion. They were telling the people that we, each of us, is a resident in a marvelous system of ideas and principles called the universe, and that the law is responsive to us and responsible for us, and that our growth, our happiness, our peace, our success is always the result of conforming to or understanding the law. We live in an intelligent universe, but it's very important to know that not only is the universe intelligent, it is warm and friendly and loving and kind. It is conscious. It is aware of us. And it has created a world in which we reside, a world that was designed to comfort, to love, and to care, to support, and to sustain each of us. And those who love the law have perfect security, and there's nothing that can make them fall. And loving the law also means understanding. Those who understand the law have perfect peace. The law of cause and effect is basic to our peace. It's basic to our happiness. And before I read to you the first statement of that law, I would like to, bait the trap of your mind with just a small piece of cheese by letting you know that if we understood how the law works, we would change our conduct, we would change the manner in which we think, we would go to such great lengths to change every aspect of our nature that in a very short time, not one person here, as a matter of fact, not one person on this planet, would be recognizable as we know them at this moment. I can tell you that if we truly understood the law, we would be so kind and thoughtful and loving and caring and joyous. If we understood the law of giving and receiving, we would go to any lengths to ensure our own success, our own prosperity, by the manner in which we give of ourselves and of our substance, of all that we have and of all that we are. In the 7th chapter of Matthew, Jesus said, "Judge not, that you may not be judged. For as you judge, you will be judged, and by the measure you dispense, it will be measured to you." Now, as I read this statement, I'm sure that each person here can say, "I've heard that. I guess I really understand that. I heard that when I was a child." And by the measure you dispense, it will be measured to you. And why observest thou that splinter in thy brother's eye, and perceiveth not the thorn in thine own eye? Most of us have heard that statement also. On my way here, I was getting off the freeway, and just in front of me was a young man in quite a hurry. And as he pulled off the approach ramp, someone nudged just in front of him just a bit, probably 6 inches over into his lane. And he set down on his brakes and hit his horn like you would hardly believe it. He really pushed on that horn. He was really not only honking his horn, but he had some things to say to that driver who had intruded into his lane. He told him. And I couldn't hear exactly what he said, but I know what he said. And the measure you dispense will be the measure you get. Now, this guy that was honking his horn, I'm reasonably sure that he's been honking it all day in a variety of ways. Even when he left his automobile, I'm sure that he's a person that pushes and sees the splinter that's in his brother's eye. I doubt seriously if it has ever occurred to him that when he drives, that his automobile might veer 6 inches into another person's lane. Do you understand what I'm talking about? How would you like to work beside him? For him? Would you? How would you like to live with him? Do you have any idea of the measure with which he expresses himself in life? And can you grasp what he has coming back to him with an attitude that I observed this morning? Well, how will I say to thy brother, let me take the splinter from thine eye, and behold a thorn in thine own eye? Meaning, how many of us would know someone that we would like to fix? If we could just get them fixed, our own life would be okay. Right? Do you know that our primary responsibility is to change our own thinking? And if I change my own thinking, I suddenly begin to discover that that's all the time I have, all the energy that I have. Another remarkable discovery that begins to occur is that when I begin to change my life, the world around me begins to change in the most remarkable way. Hypocrite, first extract the thorn from thine own eye, and then you will see clearly how to take the splinter from your brother's eye. But something else begins to happen. You'll begin to discover that it's not necessary to change that person like you thought it was going to be. As long as we believe that our happiness depends upon another person or upon circumstances being in a way that we have pre-designed, then we have to honk our horn. We have to be upset and continually concerned. Whatever you wish that men should do to you, do the same unto them, for this is the law and the prophet. Whatever it is that we give comes back to us. What would you like to have coming into your life? Give it first. Give it continuously. Give it with all of the energy at your command. Give it with joy. Be one who gives and serves, and watch what begins to happen. You see, the plain fact is that the law of life tells us that as we think and speak and act toward others, so will others think and speak and act toward us. And whatever sort of conduct we give out is exactly what comes back to us. Not always in the framework of a moment, of an hour, or even of a day, but it does come back to us. This afternoon at class, I was talking about Marge. And I said, Marge has a rose garden. And I think I'll be nice to Marge. And if I'm really nice to Marge, she will bring a rose to me. And so I'll be nice to Marge, and I'm being very nice to Marge. And lo and behold, Marge did not bring a rose to me. There must be something wrong with Marge because she did not bring a rose to me, because I was nice to Marge. But wait a moment. There was nothing wrong with Marge because she did not bring a rose. There was something wrong with me because I was nice to her in order to get a rose. I was not really being nice to her. I was attempting to get something from her, wasn't I? And when she did not give me what I desired, then she got what she was going to get all the time anyhow, which was my displeasure. So what I was setting her up for was my displeasure. That's what I was sending out, not love for Marge. But wait a moment. I'm so grateful because Marge, the wonderful person that she is, has roses in her garden. Isn't it wonderful that Marge has roses in her garden? I'm glad that she has roses, and I'm also glad that her life is like a garden filled with all the good things that she so richly deserves, and I want her to have even more abundantly, and so I send her my love, asking nothing in return. And guess what came to me? That rose. Wow. When we give to other persons, expecting nothing in return, do you have any idea what happens? Everything that we give is returned to us, except not returned at that level, but returned heaped up, pressed down, and running over. And so the great law says that as we give to life, what we give to life comes back to us. And if what we give is to cause others to be discomforted, to be shattered by the blast of our horn, or the harshness of our word, or the criticism of our thoughts, or expecting something from them on a continuing basis, expecting them to cause us to be happy, then what we will get back is what we send out. We will never find what we're looking for. We will only get what we have given to others, which is our displeasure and our discomfort. When you feel hurt because someone has been ungrateful for your kindness, it shows that you've been looking for gratitude, and this is a great mistake. The golden rule says that whatever it is that you would have people do you to those people. And we know that this is scientific Christianity. But there are many people that do not know that this really is the law of karma. And karma really means come back. It means that what you send out comes back. It means that the accumulated effects of each event, all of the events that have taken place in your life, is what you're experiencing in a given moment. And cause and effect means that how we think and feel inside ourselves, what takes place inside, becomes in time our outer experience. You, in looking at your life, are observing the effects of the system of thought. You're observing the effects of the ideas and of the feelings that have come together to be married in your consciousness over a period of time. Paul said that whatsoever a person soweth, that shall he also reap. We are constantly experiencing the consequences of our actions, both pleasant and unpleasant. And what a wonderful law this is. The great law is really great because it was designed to work in our behalf. In 30 years of working with people, I have never seen one person change because they awakened one beautiful morning and looked out the window and said, gosh, this is the day that I will make a breakthrough. It's a wonderful day. I think I will find a support group and adopt a new philosophy and do the things that will make me a more pleasant person in the eyes of other people. It doesn't work that way. I've never seen one person change until they began to experience the consequences of their actions. The consequences. It's only when the consequences come back and are heaped upon us. And let me share with you a personal experience that brought this to my attention a number of years ago. I lived in Virginia. It was the state of my birth. I awakened one Sunday morning with the startling realization that all that I needed to change to overcome the extreme discomfort of my life was to leave Virginia. My life was not the way I had planned it to be. My dreams were not being fulfilled. My nightmares were being fulfilled, but not my dreams. And my problems were legion. By legion, I mean many, and I knew who my problems were. I had a list of my problems. They were the people that I worked with and that I worked for and that I lived beside. I knew who my problems were, and I tried to fix them, and they wouldn't get fixed. So all I needed to do was to move from Virginia, and obviously the place of choice would be to California, and I set out to do that, and I did. Arriving in California with great expectations, it only took me about 6 months to reproduce there in that great state the exact same conditions that I had left behind in Virginia. Can you believe that? How could this possibly happen? I was moving away from those circumstances and from those people, and I did, and within less than 6 months I had reproduced precisely the conditions that I was seeking to escape. And the most startling thing that occurred to me, or that happened to me, was that the new people that I found in my life were exact replicas of the people I had left. They even looked like those people. They were shaped like those people. They talked like those people, and they acted like those people. They only had different names. You see, I did not understand the great law, that as we think in our heart, so are we. And that the vibrations we send out come back to us. I was attracting into my experience the equivalent of what I was. And so therefore, the only way that I could change my experience was by changing my consciousness, by changing my attitude, by changing my outlook. I was startled by my experience, but still did not understand it. And so in time I made my way back to Virginia to end my life, or to let my life run down until I died. And it was there in that great state that I made the startling discovery of the great law, that if I would change myself, I did not know that. Are you aware that most of the people who live upon this planet do not know that if they will change themselves, everything else will change? And so, therefore, at any moment of your existence, you can begin again. And as a matter of fact, every moment is a time of beginning again. I made this discovery. It was as though I were a new being come alive on a new planet. This planet changed so dramatically for me, because in that moment I became a destiny maker. I was no longer the victim of circumstances. Why? Because I had always created those circumstances, and now I could change the circumstances by changing myself. If that's not the most exciting discovery that a human being can make, you tell me what is. My fate was no longer controlled by forces outside myself, by any circumstance, by any person or groups of people. And that's the great law. All that I had to do was to send out different vibrations, meaning different thoughts and different feelings, and do different things, to begin to live inside myself and to begin to act moment by moment the way I wanted my life to be. And I was promised that if I would do that, that in time, everything would come to correspond. And I can tell you that that law in my life has never been broken. There have been times, moments here and there, when I have forgotten. But then the consequences of forgetting would capture my attention again. And back into action. What an exciting universe we occupy, and what a great law, this law of karma. It's no respecter of persons, and it forgets nothing. It forgets absolutely nothing. Suppose that you received a letter from IRS that said, "Got some good news for you. You know all that money that you owe us? You know, 1979, 1980, 1981, when you thought we couldn't add, and we could, and we did, and you owe us all those back taxes that you've been struggling to pay." Well, the good news is that we're going to wipe that out and cancel it. We have drawn your name out of the computer, and you are going to not have to pay. You're not going to have to suffer the consequences of your past experience. How would you like that? Would you like that pretty good? Would you feel fortunate? Well, I've got some great news for you. As a matter of fact, it's the great news of the gospel. The good news is that there's another law, and it's a higher law. It's higher than the law of cause and effect. As marvelous as is the law of cause and effect, there's another law which can cancel the indebtedness that we have accumulated in the lower law. And that higher law is the law of love. It is the law of higher consciousness. It's the law of the Christ. Now listen again to the 16th chapter of Luke. And it's Jesus talking, and he said to them, "You are those who justify yourselves before other people." Now, he was talking to the ordinary people of his time. As a matter of fact, he was talking to some of the scribes and religious leaders. And he said, "You justify yourself." Meaning that in ordinary human thinking, we're constantly justifying ourselves. We can always see the other guy veer off the beaten path, can't we? We can see the speck in his eye. We can see him when he gets in our lane and we honk our horn. We are always right. There was a time in my life when my favorite expression was, "I may not always be right, but I'm never wrong." But they were wrong. Those people that caused me all that trouble were wrong. I knew who they were. In ordinary thinking, we're always trying to justify ourselves. We're always explaining. We're explaining why we're late. We're explaining why we lost our temper. We're explaining our righteous indignation, our righteous anger. We can always explain to the listener why we performed the way we did, right? But you can't explain to the law of karma why you did it. Lose your temper, you're going to pay the price. Be indignant if you want to. Blame others if you will. The consequences will always come back. Then the master teacher goes on to say, "But God knows your hearts," meaning the computer never forgets. It doesn't forget. As a matter of fact, the book says to the last dot and tittle. Everything that we think and feel is accumulated. It's there. All the good goes into that computer and begins to work in our behalf and accumulates in this lifetime and beyond this lifetime. But what about all the bad that's there? What about all that horn honking and the blaming of others? Well, here's the good news. The law and the prophets were until John. But from that period, the kingdom of God is proclaimed, and everyone presses toward it. And what Jesus is saying is this. It was revealed to man at that time that there is a higher state of consciousness that we're now pressing toward, and that higher state of consciousness is called cosmic consciousness or Christ consciousness. It is the Jonathan Livingston Seagull part of each of us. It is that super self of you. It is that part of you that knows and loves and understands, forgives, experiences perfect peace. Ordinary human beings do not understand and do not believe that there is such a part of our being. But for those who know, for those of us who have come into this knowledge and who are moving into this experience, a remarkable thing begins to happen, and that remarkable gift is that we no longer have to experience the consequences of our actions. In other words, if you had a choice of living under the law of justice or the law of mercy, which would you select? Is there anybody here that wants justice? Justice will kill you. To this very day, I do not want justice. Give me mercy. Give me the cancellation of the accumulation of my fears, my concerns, my judgment toward my fellow man. And that's what the master teacher is saying is ours. If we move forward into that higher experience, then we cancel the effects of our ordinary thinking. We cancel the effects of that lower experience. Christ, or our cosmic consciousness, is king of karma. The higher is always in charge of the lower experience. Each of us, whether we live in the city or not, or in the country or not, is a farmer. You city dwellers are really farmers because we're always planting seeds. Every thought we think is the planting of a seed, and that seed will in time bear fruit. And the fruit that it bears becomes the life that we live. It becomes the experience that we have. The law of tithing is a part of the great law, the law of cause and effect. And one of the most difficult things for the human intellect to begin to understand is the necessity for sharing. You see, in the beginning, we seek our security in the accumulation of things. I want as much of the world's goods as I can possibly possess, and I want those possessions to be in my name and securely held, because in these things I will find my identity and my security. And the master teacher said, no. Don't store up treasures on earth seeking to find your identity in these things. Now, this is not meant to mean that it's not good to have things. It's good to not find your identity in things, to not try to find your security in those things. And the law of tithing means that there's a portion of everything that we receive that has to be plowed right back into life, has to be given back to life, and that's basically 10%. What farmer in his right mind would harvest his crop and take all of that crop and either sell it or use it, having nothing to plant in the following year? If you have known farmers, or if you've spent any time on a farm when you were a child, you know that the part of the crop that was to be the seed is the best part of the crop, and it was very carefully held and protected. Now, in modern farming, they do something different. They sell the crop and take 10% of the money and buy the seed, special seed, to be planted and plowed the following year. But that seed is the most important part of the harvest. Why? Because when the seed's put back into the ground, that 10% is put back into the ground, into the soil. It comes back multiplied by a factor of 10 or more times itself, doesn't it? Do you know that that is a universal law that has never been broken and it cannot be broken? until we are willing to give a tenth, putting it back into the soil, putting it back into the support of that which supports us, using it for the good of our fellow man. Never thinking of keeping it, but knowing that that tenth is the most valuable part of the money that comes to us, of the good that comes to us. And here we're not only talking about money that we give back, but we're talking about time, giving of our time, of our energy, of the substance of life, sharing ourselves with other persons at every level. And when we begin to understand how the law works, we, for the first time, begin to live at peace and with a feeling of complete security. When we have truly learned to tie, we are children of the universe, protected and cared for, and we will always have everything that we need at the time that we need it. And that's a part of the great law. But this is a matter of the development of our own consciousness. It is giving out to life, knowing that what comes back to us is exact. It is an exact law. Emerson wrote, "If you love and serve your fellow person, you cannot, by any hiding or stratagem, escape the remuneration." In other words, when we give to other people, it comes back. You can't hide from your good. There's no way that you can escape your good. I spent the first years of my life trying to find my good and could not find it. I looked high and low and it was not there. And even when I found it, it eluded me. My good slipped from my grasp as tightly as I held it. It was not there. But when my consciousness changed, when I began to be one who delighted in giving rather than receiving, everything that had eluded me found me. It sought me out. And that's the law. As we give, so do we receive. And there is no other law. In the 11th chapter of Mark, Jesus is talking to his disciples, and he said to them, if you only have faith in God, this is the absolute truth. You can say to this Mount of Olives, rise up and fall into the Mediterranean, and your command will be obeyed. If you only have faith in God, this is the absolute truth. This is the law. You can say to this Mount of Olives, you can say to a mountainous problem, you can say to any condition that's attacking you, you can say to the worst thing that ever happened to you, you can say to your deepest fear, rise up and fall away, and it will be done. But wait a moment, if you only have faith in God, but if you have faith in God, is that not a vibration that you're sending out? Is that not a statement that you're making? Not just words, but it's a statement of the mind. Have you ever talked to someone whose attention you did not have? Perhaps it was someone, a friend of yours or someone close to you, and you were waiting until the next time that you saw them so that you could share with them the most wonderful experience that you had had, and it was so precious to you, and so they came and you were speaking only to become aware that you did not have their attention. Can you recall the feeling that you had in that moment? They could not hide from you the fact that they were not with you. Whatever our state of mind is, it is so powerful that we cannot hide it. Now, when we discover that this is a living, breathing, loving, laughing, smiling, enjoying universe, and that we are a living part of it, and when our lives come alive, and we believe in our good, and expect our good, and say that we expect that good, and saying is more than a statement, it is a feeling. When we have faith, when we have confidence that our good is coming to us, then it will come to us. There is no power on this earth that will keep it from coming. Your command will be obeyed. That's what the master teacher said. All that's required is that you really believe and have no doubt. Your confidence is something that you send out, and your confidence returns to you and brings with it that which you are confident of. But suppose for a moment that you doubt, having no confidence, having no hope. Is that not what you're sending out? You're sending out a zero. And what comes back? A zero. I really don't believe. I would like to believe, but I don't. And what comes back is the result of not believing. Do you see how exact the law is, that what we send out comes back? We actually reach out into life with our thoughts and touch and grasp and catch hold of that which we believe in and draw that experience back into our own lives. It is absolutely incredible. All that's required is that you really believe and have no doubt. Exclamation point. Listen to me. Exclamation point. You can pray for anything. Italics for emphasis. And if you believe you have it, it's yours. Italics, exclamation point. That's the master teacher speaking. He's saying to you, my friend, you are a living expression of life. This is a living universe. It has been waiting for you to rise up and believe in it, to believe in your good, and to call forth that good, to express your excitement and your joy, your gratitude in advance, and to speak the word that says, I am healed. I am whole. I am successful. You cannot see it yet, because what you see is the effect of the way that I have lived prior to this moment. But I want you to know that in this moment I am changed. I begin my life right now. And I will live my life moment by moment from this point forward, thinking the thoughts that are the equivalent of what I wish, feeling the feelings. And I will give of myself, step by step, of my love, of my laughter. And never again will I condemn my fellow man or judge those persons or honk my horn. Because this is what I am, this is what I will experience. But wait a moment. The law says, but when you're praying, first forgive anyone you're holding a grudge against, so that your Father in heaven will forgive you your sins. Oh, golly. Forgive them. All of them? Every one of them? Oh, you mean I must do that, or I'm still living the law of cause and effect? Living with justice? By what measure you meet. By the law that we place upon others, so are we ourselves required to answer. A few years ago in Pennsylvania, there was a wonderful family that lived on a farm. And the father was J. Meck, his wife was Ruth, and they had 3 sons. The youngest son was Nelson. And Nelson was known by his high school friends and teachers as Sunshine. He had a lovable, sunny, smiling disposition. Everyone loved Nelson. And one day, when Jay and Ruth were waiting for Nelson to come home from school, the school bus driver came running up the lane, frantic and white-faced. Nelson had been hit by a car as he was getting off the school bus. An ambulance had been summoned, but it was too late because Nelson was dead. The driver of the car was an off-duty policeman from New York, and he and his wife had been driving through the tranquil Pennsylvania countryside, and the school bus had stopped, the lights were flashing, the sign was out on the side, and this policeman, admittedly, had driven right past it, past the signal, and had struck this young man and killed him. Jay and Ruth were devastated, and so were their other sons. The neighbors were enraged and wanted the harshest penalties imposed, and the school authorities wanted to make an example of the guilty driver, an outsider, a big city stranger, and a policeman. The days went by in a blur of grief and anguish, and one day when the insurance adjuster came to discuss settlements, Knowing that the man had also been in touch with the policeman and his wife, J. Meck was prompted to ask for the first time, how are they doing? He had never thought about them. How are they doing? And the insurance adjuster said, well, they seem to be broken up. Broken up? The Mecks did an incredible thing. They called New York and asked that couple to come to their home and to visit them and to have dinner. And reluctantly, with heads hung, that couple arrived at the appointed time, and they sat down to break bread together. It was awkward, more awkward for the policeman and his wife. The Mecks learned that Frank had been a policeman for 8 years, had a spotless record. The accident was about to cost him his job. They also had 3 children who had been forced to leave their community and go live with their grandmother because of what the other children had to say. Their lives were severely damaged by the experience. They had dark circles under their eyes, had hardly slept for weeks, had lost a lot of weight. And Ruth and Jay Meck sat at that kitchen table and put their arms around that couple and loved them. Forgave them. You see, they faced the fact that Rose and Frank were suffering as much as they. They began to realize through their compassion just what the spiritual life is all about. It is setting other persons free. It's setting people free who at times are not capable of setting themselves free. And the law requires that if you and I would be free, we must set everyone free, regardless of what they may have done, whether it was an accident or whether they did it deliberately. They deserve freedom from us. You see, it is only when we give others their freedom that we find our own freedom. That's the law. But in that freedom, compassion, there's mercy. We are free and can enter into a richer, more joyous life. You're richer this evening than you were this morning because you've laughed. I know you have. I've heard you. You've given something of yourself. You have. Even in your thoughts, as you have prepared to set other persons free. You have made a decision to make stepping stones of your problems instead of stumbling blocks. You've thought more in terms of others than you have of you. And you've been a little blinder to the faults of other people. I'm absolutely certain that everyone here has made a decision to stop honking a horn. Literally, figuratively. To look for the best in others and to believe the best in ourselves. For you, this is your lucky day. It's the day that the great law will lead you into the experiences that you so richly deserve. And that's the way it really is.
This concludes the lesson on Side A. Now, please fast forward to the end and turn the cassette over for the continuation of The Formula for Success.